Hello and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me. I'm your host, Rosie Gill-Moss. And joining me today, I've got Josie. Hi, Josie.
Hi.
Now, I, as always, know very little about my guests. It's sort of part of the process. We hear about it together. But what I do know is that you're a very talented musician. And as I'm talking to you, I've just said to Josie before we came on the mic, I was like, is that your house? Because if you're only listening to this, there is an array of guitars behind her, which is unlike anything I've ever seen. I think it's just phenomenal. So, but obviously the reason you're here is because your husband has died.
Yeah.
So if you would, in your own time, take me back, tell me a little bit about Robert, who he was, how you met, give me a little bit of the backstory as well, because otherwise we only know about the Robert that died.
So we were put in touch with each other through a mutual friend. We're both singer-songwriters. He was in a band called Autumn Chorus, and he needed some violin on one of his tracks. So a mutual friend of ours put us in touch just over Facebook, and he sent me the files. I said I was up for doing it. It was beautiful music. I recorded some violin, sent it back, and he was super happy. And that could have just been the end of the interaction. But we kept chatting on Facebook for about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Having never really met face to face, because when we first talked, we were both in other relationships. When those broke up, we kind of counselled each other through them over the internet. And it was a bit like having a pen pal.
Yeah.
I used to refer to him as my imaginary friend. One day,
did your friend sort of tease you and say, does this guy actually exist?
Yeah. And one day he just said he was going to come and hear me sing in a choir, and I was like, you can't actually come and see me face to face. That there might be some sort of disappointment there. We're so close, and it might not mesh up in real life, I suppose.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, he came and watched the concert, and we talked after, and there was this sort of strange electricity in the air. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but yeah, there was something there. But it was a while before we actually started dating. But yeah, the connection was just even better in real life than it was online, which, I've experienced the complete opposite before, especially, online dating.
I don't think you're the only one.
Exactly. So sometimes, you can get really close to someone and then you meet them in person and it's just like, oh, this is a complete stranger.
But you had that real chemistry and spark.
It was crazy. It's like we'd known each other all our lives. It was that kind of strange energy between us. So then we started dating. It was on the 25th of October, 2013. And a year later to that day, we got married. So 9 days before our wedding, he had a bleed when he went to the toilet. And went to hospital, and they did a scan and found that he had stage 4 colorectal cancer.
Shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you just say the day before your wedding?
9 days before.
9 days. I mean, still bad. Oh my goodness. So the first thing that strikes me about that is that he got to the process of having scans so quickly. Because often, how old was he then?
He was, he must have been 32, I think.
So very young, and in this job, I speak to a lot of people who've lost people to cancer.
Wow.
And so often it's missed because they are otherwise young and healthy. Mm-hmm. And so how come they were so quick to do the scan? Do you know, or is it just a habit?
I don't know. They did they sort of put a camera up, I think, first to see what was going on, and they saw something that looked really dodgy. And so then they sent him for an MRI. It had already spread to his lungs and to his liver as well. So,
Jesus, and nothing until that point, no signs.
Right, he'd had no pain.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
It was complete shock, and up to that point, it had been like a fairy tale, like finding the love of your life and being romantic and getting married, and then suddenly, just in the space of 24 hours, it was just a nightmare,
And at that point, because stage 4 is bad, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, I mean, I will let you tell your own story, but I'm eager. Did they talk about treatment options, or was it literally, this is terminal cancer?
Do you know what? They never said the word terminal. The doctor initially said probably he'd have 3 to 6 months to live if he didn't start treatment straight away.
Right.
And so basically, had the honeymoon and get going with treatment straight away.
And how was the wedding? Because that must have cast quite a shadow over what was supposed to be such a lovely day.
You know what? The day was absolutely beautiful and perfect. And what we did, because it was such a shock in the week before, it was actually going to be a really big wedding with like over 200 people. And because we thought it was going to be so emotional and difficult on the day, we actually cut the wedding list down by like over a half, because we were like, we're really sorry, we've just had this news. We just want really like close friends and family there, because it could be a really emotional time. And everyone was really understanding. But actually, I think that kind of made the day even more special, because it was just our closest friends and family there. And yeah, it was just a really joyful day. It was beautiful.
I like that. I like that you were sort of almost able to sideline the spectre that was hanging over you and enjoy the day for what it was, which is, come what may, a celebration of love, right?
Yeah. And we were so hopeful and completely in denial that
of course,
we were just like, we're gonna fight this. You're young, you're healthy, you know, we're gonna have the treatment and we're gonna live happily ever after.
Yeah, it's a blip. It's a blip
that we could have. Yeah.
And so after the wedding, I imagine it was fairly quickly that he started the treatment then.
Yeah, I think it was within weeks of the wedding. Yeah, so because we were going to go to Iceland, see the Northern Lights for our honeymoon, but we had to cancel that. Well, we said we would postpone it. Sadly, we never actually got to go there. But yeah, he had to start chemotherapy, like really hardcore chemotherapy, very quickly.
And how did he react to that? Because it very quickly kind of strips a lot of what makes you who you are away. And for women as well, but for men often they feel like it strips them of their masculinity and it can make them quite angry. Others don't. I'm just curious to know how Robert reacted.
He was a very sort of emotionally intelligent guy, and I think he really understood what was going on and how he felt. Obviously, he had to stop work for a while. I think the main thing he felt was guilt. Like, you know, he was getting married, and then suddenly he was almost taking all that away from me, because then I had to sort of be the main income of the family, and I had to look after him when he was sick. And he was so loving and nurturing. He wanted to be the one looking after me, you know. So yeah, I think he found that aspect of it difficult. I don't think he really had a lot of anger, or not that he expressed.
And actually, that's quite telling, because I think I'd be pretty bloody angry if I was 32 and, you know, fighting for my life. So talk me through you don't have to go into lots of detail, but talk me through the treatment process, because you've, so I know he's not working, so you've got a financial worries to consider. And people don't think about this, that if one of you dies or becomes seriously ill, and I mean, I know you can get wage protection insurance and all that sort of stuff, but who's thinking about that in their 30s? I know I wasn't.
Well, what was slightly annoying is that he used to sell that.
Oh, no.
He used to work in mortgages and stuff, and he used to sell like critical illness cover and life insurance and all that, but he'd never took it out himself. So
listen, it's like I lived with a man who made beautiful wood floors. Do you think I had one of those floors in my house? No, I did not. So from the point of diagnosis, which would be, say, 2013, and then he lived for another 3 years, am I right?
It was about 2 years, I think.
Yeah. So just tell me a little bit about what that time was like, because I know the two of you planned to have a family. So how did you reconcile that, and what did you do?
So with the date, we got married in 2014, and that's when he was diagnosed. Before he started the treatment, they recommended that we froze some sperm, because they said this chemotherapy is just going to wipe out your reproductive system, basically. And so we did that because we always wanted to have children. And then he was very quickly put on this, I think there was 3 different chemotherapy drugs he had to take all at once, and it was every fortnight. And it was so intense that he really only had like 3 good days, I suppose, before getting back into it. He was such a trooper about it, I need to say the least. Yeah.
Was he the kind of chap that would, you mentioned that he was emotionally intelligent. Did you talk about the possibility that he could die at this point?
Do you know, I don't think we ever actually said that he was dying. I never heard him say the word terminal until he was in the hospice. I think the way we really survived it, the way we got through it, was by planning for the future. It was always like, when you get better, then we'll do this, you know. And also we were just making the most of each day. You know, just, you know, on any good day that he had, we would try and do something. We would try and get out of the house and go somewhere nice, make the most of it.
Yeah.
It was such a roller coaster that we were just really surviving each day. We just couldn't bring ourselves to talk about him dying because it was just unthinkable, really.
And actually, you know, the time, and you mentioned there, he felt guilty because you'd just got married and you'd kind of been sold this dream together. And it's just so polar opposite to what you were expecting to be doing, you know, off on honeymoon, building a life together, planning to have children and, you know, the growing of your careers. And now you're trying not to think about this elephant in the room that's there. And we know the human brain is clever, right? We know that it can avoid anything if it tries hard enough.
Yeah.
So at what point during his treatment, and I really hate asking these questions because I feel like I'm being really brutal, but at what point were you told, and how were you told, that there wasn't really anything else they could do?
It was in the last, I think, 6 months or so. We'd had a really good scan, and I remember the oncologist saying the words, "We're winning."
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, you know, everything was shrinking. He'd had, I think he'd had by that point about 30 rounds of chemotherapy, and
poor guy.
He'd had surgery to take out his whole liver in 2 sections. So it's like 2 13-hour surgeries. He'd had to take out half his liver and the other half, and out his descending colon as well. So he had to have a stoma bag, and then more chemo. And then they said, "We're winning." And we were like, finally, you know, all this fight, and we're getting there. And that's when we started doing the IVF treatment, because we were like, well, let's start.
Let's plan. Yeah.
Time now. And then a few months later, he had another scan after we'd already started the IVF, and everything had just grown back like with a vengeance. It was all through his stomach lining. It was in his lungs. It was all like where his liver had grown back. It had grown back with bigger tumours than it got before. And that's when they said to us, "I'm sorry that we're going to have to stop the chemo. It's not really working." And they referred us to the Marsden, and they said, "You've got about 3 months left." And that was in September of 2016.
Gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'm thinking, this poor guy, you know. And also, you know, when we talk about fighting cancer, and when you hear stories like this, the guy's been through how many rounds of chemo?
I think it was about 30.
And he, you know, he's done everything possible, this surgery, really awful surgery, and still the bastard thing comes back.
Yeah.
And you can't fight an adversary like that, can you?
Right.
That must have been really horrible. I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. So when he's given 3 months to live, obviously that is horrific. What happened? What do you do as a young couple when you get that sort of news?
I mean, we cried for a few days, and then we went to West Whistling Beach and just tried to forget about everything, just splashed around in the water, took our dog with us. And then we got this new determination. We were still in denial, I think. We went and tried loads of different herbal things. We went to someone in London who we spent about £900 on supplements, and then we also applied to the Marsden to get on a trial there, because there was a new what's the opposite of chemotherapy? Is the newer one, immunotherapy, I think it's called.
I'm so glad you weren't looking to me for an answer. My brain just stopped.
So we nearly got on one of those courses, but they last minute they said that he couldn't do this particular course because he had I got the name for it now. I think it's something like ascites, that his stomach kept filling up with fluid basically, and it had to be drained. And they said, "Sorry, but you're over the limit," because he had to have it drained twice a week. they were like, we can't start the treatment. But this brand new drug that he could have got on, and he couldn't have it because he was just slightly too far gone. It means his liver was failing, you know. And yeah, so I remember just still being in denial, just still believing that some miracle would happen. Yeah. And I think when I started to see him visually really start to become emaciated and so thin and grey, I was like, oh, like, what do I do? I need to feed you more. You know, I was just always trying to think, I've got to fix this in some way. And then, because I was then pregnant, and I think I was 8 weeks pregnant when he passed. But so I started feeling really nauseous and really tired, as you do in the start of pregnancy as well. And I found caring for him was getting harder and harder because I was, you know, having to help him out of bed towards the end. And I was changing his stoma bag and supporting him, moving him around when he was, you know, getting sore in one position. And thank God for St. Catherine's Hospice. They were absolutely amazing. They were put in touch with us, and they managed to get a bed at Crawley and St. Catherine's Hospice. And they were so amazing. They even got another bed and put it right next to his so that I could sleep there with him, because I was like, I'm not leaving, frankly. I would not leave his side. And then that just took the pressure off me for the caring point of view. The doctors were just amazing there.
I hear this quite a lot about hospice care, and so many people don't want to go. And understandably, because you're not coming out, are you? And I get that, but the other side of it is the way that their partners can become their partners again, not their carers, not their nurses, doctors, and that if you're going to have to go, you want to do it at peace. And hospitals aren't very peaceful, are they?
Really, no. Well, Robbie really wanted to die at home. He said that. And I remember when he first got the number for the hospice, he was like, I don't want this. I don't want it from there. Like, but he's still just not believing it. And even when the ambulance came to pick us up to take us to the hospice, in the ambulance, we were saying to each other, oh, if we don't like it there, we'll come back home, you know?
Yeah.
Going that denial.
Bargaining.
Really crazy. And I mean, even in his very last moments when his heart stopped, I would press the red button and I like calling the nurses, and I was like, his heart stopped. We need to resuscitate him. You know, like, it's panic of we've got to do something. Still not accepting until the nurse said to me, he's taking his last breath. And I was like, but that is when it actually hit. Sorry. That's when it hit me that he's going, you know?
Was it just the two of you at the end?
No, my parents and my sister was there, and our dog as well.
And your dog?
Yeah.
Oh. And as you're both musical, did you sing to him, play to him?
I put on his favourite music. I played him a bit of Sigur Rós that he really loved, and I also played him one of his compositions that had a sample of his mum's voice, because she sadly passed away quite a few years before, because she'd had breast cancer. So the little samples of her voice.
So you were able to give him his mother's voice as he was taking his last breath. That's incredibly
really poignant, because he actually says, "Shall we say bye-bye now?" at the end of the song. So I can't listen to this song.
I bet you can't.
No.
Can you listen to him sing at all?
Yes, I've found it really comforting, and especially when our son was born, I used to play him music with Robbie singing. And actually, that's the first thing he heard as soon as I gave birth. I put on a little song that Robbie had recorded, so that would be the first thing that he heard.
Oh my goodness! So you've tried so hard to make sure that little boy knows where he came from, and lots of dads, will do the skin to skin when a baby's born, and I guess you were doing the very next best thing you could. And I am really interested in this. Now, a friend of mine has had IVF after her husband died. They had some frozen embryos, and she's had a beautiful little girl, and she doesn't regret it. She's really proud of her decision to do this. But I know that some people were skeptical, and so you were pregnant at the time with your little boy. What's his name?
Laurie.
Laurie. And how old is he?
He's 7 now.
7. Oh, I got a 7-year-old. They're fun, right? So how did you kind of come to terms with the idea that you were always going to be the solo parent to your child? Because even if you were to meet somebody, you would always be the only existing biological parent. What did that feel like?
I mean, as soon as he got diagnosed, I remember being in the hospital and just having so much rage about what was going on, but feeling, what am I going to do? If he does die, how am I going to go on living? What purpose would I have with my soulmate? And I thought the only way I'm going to have purpose is if I have his children. But from the moment he was diagnosed, I knew that I was going to be the mother to his children. There was no question for me at all. So, and then after Robbie died, it became the thing I lived for. I think had I not been pregnant when he died, I don't think I'd be here. I think I would have followed him.
I can unfortunately relate to that sentiment because I had 3 children. I've got 4 now because I have an adopted daughter, but I had 2 little boys. They were 5 and 7 and a 6-month-old daughter. And when the boys were at school, that period of time could very easily have got dark. But because I have my daughter that was only 6 months, and like you would have had to make sure you ate and hydrated and, walked occasionally, you couldn't dissolve into a booze-fueled pit of despair because you had a life inside of you.
Okay.
And I get that. And when I used to feel like I genuinely couldn't do this anymore, it was those 3 faces that brought me back. But I speak to lots of people who don't have children and they have to find other ways to keep going. And sometimes having children when you're widowed is actually quite difficult because you're very, very tired as they get older. But I think in those early days, having that need, that reason to get up and do the things, sometimes it does keep us alive.
Yeah, I really think it did. And also, like from a health point of view, they discovered when I was pregnant, they do the test for gestational diabetes, they do a sugar test. They were like, whoa, your blood sugar is really high. So they discovered that I was type 1 diabetic when I was pregnant, and they wouldn't have tested had I not been pregnant. And they think that the stress of the grief basically made my immune system go haywire. It's almost like a self-destruct thing,
Yeah.
So I'm really just very grateful that I was pregnant because it could have got really, really bad before it was discovered,
See, little gift from beyond, maybe.
Yeah.
Not the actual diabetes, but the diagnosis. What was it like going to your antenatal appointments? Did you have to sort of retell your story at every midwife or doctor's appointment?
Yeah, I think it's always a bit of an elephant in the room, isn't it? In your minds, before somebody else knows, it's always there, isn't it? Like, when are they going to find out? How am I going to say it to them? And I was part of an NCT group, and I ended up taking my sister with me to the classes. But I was always feeling like, oh, what are they wondering if I'm, a single mum? There's nothing wrong with single mums, but they're assuming other things that aren't true. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up telling the head, I can't remember what she was called, like the Scout, I don't know. I was very excited. I said, can you just let them know before I get there 1 week, just because I just can't stand people not knowing and assuming other things.
Yeah.
So she really subtly just told them before I got there. And they had a few questions like, how did you die and all that kind of thing. But after that, they just, they were so supportive and just accepted it. And they've been a real wonderful network of ladies to support me.
Yeah, those groups you meet and that first pregnancy is something special.
Mm-hmm.
I also find sometimes I have a similar situation because I've got the 4 children, and because one of them is not biologically mine, she's a very similar age to my middle son. And so people say, how many kids have you got? And I have to make a decision there and then whether to go, do I give them the abbreviated version, I've just got 4 kids, they'll make a comment about, oh, that's a lot, and we'll move on. Or do I? And it depends on my mood, it depends on the person. But sometimes I do feel that compulsion to over-explain it all because I don't want anybody to think my husband walked away from me and my kids. Quite frankly, I don't want anybody to think that of him.
Yeah, it is that, isn't it? You don't want to think that somebody left you and didn't care about the children. Like, he was so desperate to be here.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. And who was with you at your birth? Was it your sister?
Yeah, my sister and my parents were in the hospital, and they came in straight after as well. So,
Oh, are you really close to them?
yeah, and we all live in the same village. Very close family. They've been amazing, really. They've like carried me through all of this.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too. Yeah, and when you speak to as many widows as I have, you realise that not everybody has that.
Right.
And it made me so much. I mean, I was grateful at the time. Maybe didn't always show it to my mum, but I was grateful. And yeah, it's made me appreciate it so much more. I couldn't have done it without them. So now you've got your baby, little Laurie. Yeah. And that's kind of going to be taking up a lot of your time. So are you in this time? Have you had the time to process your grief, or are you just head down, keep going?
I think I was in shock for about 2 years. Because I think I was just in survival mode, just completely focused on the baby. And I think I sort of tried to come to an acceptance that this is my life now. I'm just a mum. Yeah. Because I can't be anything else. This is the only thing I'm surviving for. And it took a long while for me to want to live for myself, I think. And I don't think I smiled or laughed for, years. I'm obviously smiling at the baby and everything, but not really feeling it, not like being overcome with joy.
I lost joy. I thought that was it. I was going to exist. I was going to do my very best by the children, but I had reconciled myself to the fact that joy was not going to be a part of my life. And actually, a baby can't help but be joyful. I mean, they're annoying little buggers when they get up in the night, but the first smiles, the gurgling, and I got a lot from Tabby as a baby, as much as I probably gave her in many ways, because you have to be smiling around a baby, otherwise they're going to be sad. So yes, it's a mask, it's a very effective and efficient mask, but underneath that, we aren't. It's like the reverse of the aeroplane analogy, isn't it? You don't put your own oxygen mask on. You make sure that your bump and then your baby is okay. I made sure my children are okay, and it does delay the grieving.
Yeah.
What happened? Did something happen that sort of pushed you to process the grief, or was it just time?
Well, because I've always been a songwriter and I've always been creative through all my life. But I'd always before, Robbie, written about heartbreaks and little trivial things like that, like relatively trivial.
They say anything seems trivial when you're a widow, right?
Well, that's it. Yeah, because obviously I have been hugely heartbroken before and written some really deep, sad songs. But then having been through what we went through, I didn't feel I could write again. And that really stripped away my old sense of identity, because I'd always been an artist, I've always been a songwriter. And I thought, I can't write about this. I remember sitting at a piano and just I couldn't touch the keys. I was just staring at them for ages. And then I just burst into tears. I was like, there are no chords that can describe this. How can I put into words even what I'm feeling? And so really, I not only lost Robbie, but I really lost my sense of self and how I identified as an artist. And I was like, God, now that's gone as well. So I was sort of grieving for that creative outlet. And it wasn't until, I can't remember how long after, it was that 18 months or something, I was looking for some photos of Robbie on one of his hard drives. And I found this folder that was just called Ideas. And I went into it, and it was all these little unfinished songs and little sort of voice memos that he'd put in there, these little seeds of songs that I hadn't heard before. And it was hugely emotional, but it was so amazing. Yeah, I knew beautiful. It's like hearing him talk to me, And I was like, I can't just leave these little treasures on this hard drive, because they were so beautiful. And I was like, I have to get these out in some way. And I really used that as a catalyst to start writing again myself. So I used them as a seed and then expanded them, like either by sampling or by sort of writing the next part of, or looping and things like that, and just using little snippets or sometimes whole songs. And eventually I managed to put a whole album together that really felt like a conversation between me and him. And it really helped me process so much of the grief, and because there's so many aspects of grief and so many ways to grieve, and it helped me to almost compartmentalize the different aspects into different songs. And when I finally got the album in my hands, once it had been printed onto vinyl and CD, I was like, this is physically what I have been through. I'm now holding it in my hand. And I think that was a really huge part of my therapy to really process it and find myself again through being a writer and feel like I can be an artist. I can be me again.
I actually wrote down, before you even said the words, that you felt like you'd lost your identity. I wrote stripped of identity, because when you're widowed, you become public property. You become quite infantilized. You have to start putting your mum as your next of kin on things because your husband's dead. And there are so many aspects of you that get stripped away. And I suppose as a musician, people would assume that you would have found solace in that. But then to not be able to get the comfort from the thing that has brought you comfort for presumably most of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That must have felt horrible. You must have just felt so lost.
It was one of my lowest points. I was so devastated because it was like a double loss. It was losing him, and now I'd lost me as well. What have I got left? Obviously, I had Laurie. I was like, but this is all I'm allowed to have. I'm only allowed to be a mum now. And I think I was speaking to someone the other day about how I didn't feel I could write until I was writing with Robbie. I almost feel like I couldn't give myself permission because I'd spent so long like caring for him and then caring for Laurie that I couldn't do something selfish. I couldn't bring myself to do something just for me. So it was really finding his demos and being like, I'm doing this for him to show people his music and to show how beautiful he wrote and how he sang. And it took a while for me to really get my head around. I can do this for me as well. That's okay. Yeah.
Positive selfishness I think is the term.
Wow.
And it's that. And actually, you do have to accept that you're not you anymore. You're a different version.
Right.
But I'm so glad that you're able to find some peace in music again.
Yeah, totally.
Now, next question coming in. So you had Laurie. You got pregnant with Laurie whilst Robbie was sick.
Yeah.
So he knew you were pregnant, did he?
He did, yeah. He had managed to come to the first scanner because you get a 6-week scan when you do IVF.
Ah, okay.
Period before he died, he came and just about managed to get up the stairs to the clinic, and there was just a little blob on the screen, and with a little tiny flicker heartbeat, and I just remember him saying, oh, "Wow."
Yeah,
it's a really special moment. Yeah,
and for him to know that part of him is going to continue.
Yeah.
But you mentioned to me that you have got 2 children.
Yes.
So tell me how that came about.
So when we did the IVF, we ended up with 3 embryos, and the first one was Laurie, and the other 2 got frozen. And in my mind, those embryos were now our children. I was in my head, I was like, I'm going to have all 3 of these because there's no way I can sign a form to say for these embryos. I couldn't bring myself to do it because it felt like Robbie's children.
What a moral dilemma.
We know. So and I wanted them to be quite close in age because I wanted them to, grow up together. And so when Laurie was, I think, 1 and a bit, I went and did IVF. Not the IVF, but the egg implantation. What would you call it? The embryo implantation. That's it. But that round sailed, and I was really shocked at how hard that hit me. I think because the first one worked, I just assumed the second one would work.
And also the universe has just been really horrible to you, so surely it's not going to do anything horrible again.
Exactly. Something good's going to happen now, surely. And it felt, I know it's not technically a miscarriage, but to me it felt like a miscarriage because the embryo had been inside me and it didn't work. And, after that happens, you have a huge bleed. And to me, it felt like somewhere in that, the embryo is there, and I felt, like a failure in some way that I wasn't able to hold it in. I don't know what it was, but I was
Human brain is very unkind to us, isn't it? Your own mind.
It was really harsh. But then I was like, right, well, I've got one more try, and thankfully that one worked. And then I had our daughter, Connie.
And you didn't get twins?
No.
That's lovely. And so how old is Connie now?
She's 5 now.
So my next question is really about the kids. And how have you broached the subjects of how they came to be?
I think I'm always very honest with them. I got some advice from Winston's Wish, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Charity, and they said, don't try and over-romanticize the idea. Don't say things like, daddy's a star in the sky, because then they'll be like, well, can I go and travel up to the star?
Yeah.
How do we get the star there? Because they're very literal. So I've always been really honest that he got a disease that was called cancer, and the doctors did everything they could, and that daddy did everything he could to stay here, but that it didn't work, and his body stopped working, and so he died. And they accept it. They do. They have questions from time to time, but because kids kind of puddle jump in the way that they think, he can be, my son can be, asking me about daddy, and then he'd be like, "What are we having for dinner?"
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I told my children their dad had died completely out of the blue, and they cried. And then they came downstairs in Harry Potter costumes. And I was like, what is the matter with them? Why are they behaving like that? Yeah. And it's only because of things like the muddy puddles analogy and Winston's Wish were really helpful to me, and that you figure out that children's grief is different. But much like you, and it was similar to you, in that Tabby had never known her dad. She was a babe in arms. It's really difficult because you want them to know where they came from, but you don't want to pile on a load of sadness onto them. You don't want, but you're dead, dad, da, da, da. So we're trying to find that balance. And weirdly, she's always been able to identify, she spoke young, she's a precocious little thing, and she could identify Ben by, daddy, but from a photo from very young. And that part of it, I feel really sad for her, because although the boys' memories are fading, they do have some tangible sort of memories. So I guess you've got to sort of do that for him, haven't you? You've got to share who he was, what he was like. And I'm just really wondering how you do that.
I mean, it helps that there's so much recorded music, so they can hear him sing, and they can see photos of him being in his band and things like that. And I've also got photo albums. I do one every year. And so they like to look through.
I set out to do one once. I've got 1 year done from 14 years ago.
Yeah, so they really like that. And I've got a few videos of Bobby sort of mucking around and things like that, because he was such a funny person as well. And I really want them to know that. And it's just such a shame that they didn't get to experience him as a father, because he just would have been incredible. He was so warm and just hilarious, and just with that emotional intelligence, I know that he would have just been amazing to them. So,
and that's kind of an even bigger kick in the teeth, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And so I try not to initiate bringing him up with them, because I know that they're in their own world, but that when they bring it up, then I'm really, really open and present and answer any of their questions. And sometimes they do get upset. Sometimes they'll have a cry. And Laurie has said a few times that he misses his dad. And, some people might say, how can he miss him? He never met him. But he has got that sense of lost.
Something missing. Yeah. I think they do. And I felt very strongly that, as far as my kids were concerned, that this was going to be a terrible thing that had happened to them. But I really didn't want it to define them. I didn't want them to be the kids whose dad drowned, for the rest of their lives. And that's why I think what you do, letting them come to you with the grief as well is important. And also not poo-pooing it, not sort of saying, oh, well, you can't miss him, you didn't know him. Because that's the kind of thing that really damages a kid, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in terms of IVF, I mean, I understand that your daughter's only 5, so that's a pretty grown-up conversation to have. But how do you plan to sort of say to them, or say to her in particular, I knew that I had you even though your dad was dead, and I understand why, but how do you have a way you plan to tell her, or is that something that's a little far off?
Well, the way I described it to Laurie is that some very clever doctors took a little bit of mummy and a little bit of daddy and put them together, and it made you,
magic.
Yeah, exactly. Don't have to explain anything else, and he accepts that. And I've said to Connie that I made them both the doctors made them both on the same day. So technically they're twins, but then Connie was put in a freezer for a few years.
I was going to say, I bet Laurie's like, she's not the same age as me, because they get quite competitive about that sort of thing, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
This sounds amazing. And how are things for you now? How do you find being a solo mum of two and also with doing the singing? How are you managing? Basically?
Well, I'm managing really thanks to my amazing family, because they have been there since the day one, and they are always willing when I need a babysitter, or if I'm going to be late back from work, then they pick them up from school. So, there's that old saying, you need a village to bring up a child. They are my village. And they have just been incredible. And they really encouraged me to still have a social life. So they'll be like, you go to this party, we'll put them to bed so they can stay over up, like that. And it's
where'd your parents live? I'm just asking.
I feel incredibly lucky to have that support. And I do find it really hard. I think some of the hardest things is that in the evenings, once the kids are in bed, you can't just go for a walk or something.
Mm-hmm. You can't. That's that feeling of being a bit trapped, isn't it?
You feel trapped in your own house, yeah.
Or if you forgot milk or something, it's the little things like that I used to find really frustrating. I mean, it was normally wine back then, but those are the things I used to find frustrating.
Yeah, and I think also I think probably all single parents find this, but from a discipline point of view, you don't have the adult in the house to say, don't speak to your mother like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's hard because I'm outnumbered. They're ganging up on me and not listening. And so it's overwhelming and it's really hard. But it's, it's how it is. And it's the choices that I've made that got me here. And I try to look for the positives. And I mean, they're amazing kids. They're such strong characters. And Laurie in particular really looks like his dad.
I was going to ask if, in fact, I've written down, do they look like him? Because that must be quite strange.
Yeah, but definitely Laurie's eyes. From the moment he was handed to me, I was like, oh my God, he's got Robbie's eyes, even as a tiny baby. And Connie, she does a certain smile, like a cheeky smile, and it just looks so like him.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because you think, how can you know their mannerisms? That genetic power, it's incredible. Yeah, my kids are a little bit older now. So my eldest is 14 and I think he's probably taller than his dad now. Ben was 6'2", but he wears some of his clothes and he dresses quite like he did. So I do a real... as I walk into the kitchen, I don't think I'll ever get used to it. Perhaps once he settles into being a man, but where he's gone from boy to man looking, it's really strange. But I love it now. I think it would have broken my heart a few years ago. But now I love it, and I love seeing it. And he loves music, and loads of the stuff that his dad was into. Did you have anybody say anything that like a little bit? Did anybody question your decision?
I think I did after.
When you came home from hospital.
No, definitely after having Connie, I went into quite a deep depression after that, and then I was feeling really guilty, feeling like I'd had the kids for me, and that they now have to live with this sense of loss. And I struggled with that guilt for a while. And I was saying to myself, these kids should have had two happy parents. And now they've just got one miserable one because I was so low. And thankfully, I'm out of that period.
How did you get yourself out of it? What did you do?
I had therapy and I tried to really look after myself. I think because for so long, I'd not exercised, and I hadn't been, after the pregnancy, I hadn't been eating healthily because I was like, well, there's no point now. But I really made myself, because I got such a low point. I was like, the kids really need me to not be like this. They need me to be present and happy. And so I started exercising, and I started being healthier. And
you did the
work. I did all the works, and that really, really helped. And doing the music as well has helped me, like I said, refine myself, and given me stuff to look forward to that isn't just part of being a family. It's been my vocation, my passion. And there was actually an article, I won't say which paper it was in, but I went and did an interview for one of the big papers, and they said it was going to be about, the album that I was bringing out and keeping Robbie's legacy alive through having the children. And I do a lot of work for charity as well. Once a year, I raise money for charity in his memory. They said it would be all about this. But when the article came out, it was very much about the morality of my decision to have these children. And on the online article, there were over 100 horrible comments of people saying, oh, this selfish woman, how dare she bring these children into the world to validate her grief? You know, our taxes are going to be paying for their therapy bills later on. And just,
So that's a reach, isn't it?
wow, it was really intense, and I shouldn't have read them.
Oh, but you can't help yourself.
And it was devastating. It was really horrible because it really tapped into that sense of guilt that I had by having them. But in my mind, at the time, there was no choice. I had to have his children and continue his genes, I suppose. Like, we were going to have kids and no one was going to take that away from me. You know, even if they take him away, they couldn't take that away from me. And
they say don't make any big decisions within the first year, but I don't think that they're taking into account postnatal hormonal women in that, because that's the other thing, is your hormones will have been all over the place as well. They'd have been screaming at you.
Yeah, because you're injecting hormones every day when you do it. Yeah. And actually, a good friend said to me, nobody has kids for unselfish reasons. Nobody just has a kids for the kids' sake. You know, everyone makes a choice to have children because that's their biological instinct, and that's totally normal.
And most kids will at some point say they never asked to be born. I used to say that to my mum on a regular basis.
And, you know, whatever you do and whatever family setup you have, your kids are probably going to hate you at some point.
Well, my counsellor said to me once, quite early on, she said, oh, you're so worried that you're going to fuck your kids up. And I was like, yes, I'm so worried I'm going to fuck my kids up. And she's like, I'm going to tell you something. I went, what? And she went, you already have. And I was like, what? And she said, all children will remember something that a parent did that, you know, negatively impacted. It might be shouting at it'll be something. She said, don't, like, everybody, no parent creates another human completely perfectly. Like, you can't. And I think, especially as your kids get older, you will find that you can talk to them more about your grief and your decisions to have them. And actually, I think, you know, it's quite magical that you loved their dad so much and you wanted them so much that you made the choice to have them on your own. Yeah. Very few people make the choice to have children on their own. Many people end up on their own, but very few people decide to do it. And I think it's incredibly brave. And I think, actually, the way that your kids are going to grow up understanding so much more about grief. Yes, we'd much prefer their dad to be here. We all would. But I know that with the right support, children don't have to be traumatised long term. It can be part of them, not the whole of them. And can I ask you about dating? Have you dated since?
The last couple of years I've tried. So, I mean, I was widowed 8 years ago, and I think it was the pandemic that really made me feel so lonely that I was like, I can't just be on my own forever. Because at that time, I think 2020, wasn't it? So Laurie was 2, Connie was 6 months old, and I had 2 rescue rabbits and a rescue dog at the time as well. And I was suddenly completely on my own, having had so much help from my family, but now they were all isolating and I didn't have any help. And it was so thoroughly lonely. I mean, in a way, it was quite empowering because it proved to myself that I could do it on my own, you know, having had so much help before. But I was like, actually, I can do this on my own. But then I was like, I don't want to do this on my own.
And that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah. And Robbie, before he died, he did say to me that he didn't like the idea of me going through my life with no one to look after me. He's like, you know, if you find someone. So he gave me that permission to not feel guilty about thinking about looking for someone else. And so, yeah, I've tried a bit of online dating and I've had a few short relationships, but what's tricky about it is that because of what we went through being so huge, everything now feels really like puny, you know, like having dates, they feel very like...
And it's having to start from the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
start from the beginning.
When you're at that point with your partner that you know everything about them, they know everything about you, they've seen you, you know, they've held your hair while you've puked, there's no secrets. And then you have to kind of go back out again. And I found that I kind of didn't, because I dipped my toe more out of curiosity than anything, because it didn't exist online dating when I met Ben. So it was kind of, well, it did, but it was quite obscure. And so and I'd go on these dates and I'd just be thinking, I'm just putting on a performance. This isn't me. Like, I'd be so and then I'd go home and, you know, finish off a bottle of gin and, you know, wake up with complete blackout. And that was kind of my voyage into dating. And then I met my husband, and we were friends. We met through Widowed and Young, and we just basically, there's a history here. I'm in sobriety now, but my coping mechanism was alcohol. And I got quite drunk and basically snogged him through his car window. And here we are. But because we'd been part of the same way group, he knew everything, you know, all the sort of weird shit that you do in those early couple of years of widowhood. He knew all of this. Yeah. And so that I was able to be myself. So it didn't feel like I was going back out and dating. Brilliant. So, I mean, I'm just saying I recommend dating another widower, really. I mean, just see if I get anybody like send them my way. Yeah. Well, I suppose it is quite the conversation to have as well. Yes, I was widowed very young. I also have 2 children.
Dating recruit was another thing, because, you know, every time I want to go on a date, I have to get a babysitter. And
and then you have to explain it, and you don't always want to explain it, especially when you're widowed. You want to see
your parents who you're going out with.
Yeah, because they do. They want to know where you're going. My mum used to check how much I'd drunk and, you know, what time I'd be home. And it's because they care. It's because they care.
I think as well with me, I think because Robbie was diagnosed so early on into our relationship, it was before the honeymoon phase.
So you were still in it.
We were still in the honeymoon phase. And then after that, you know, I mean, in our whole relationship, we never had an argument. We never had, you know, that kind of turmoil and then working it out afterwards. Mm-hmm. So that relationship is in such a perfect bubble. And then, you know, after he was diagnosed, we were just so grateful to wake up each day and him still be here, and we made the most of every moment. So we weren't, I mean, obviously we were really tested in a certain way, but we weren't tested like a normal long-term relationship.
You hadn't got sick of his pants on the floor and things like that.
When you get annoyed with them, and I know that is part of a normal relationship because I've had those relationships before, Robbie. But now going back to that feels really small and disappointing. And I know I've got to somehow get past that and accept that, you know, I'm not going to have what that felt like with Robbie, because that was such a unique experience. I mean, because of the cancer as well as anything else. So yeah, I'm still working out and coming to terms with what dating now, I think.
It's horrible as well at the moment. You know, this horrible swiping and dick pics. I mean, I'm going to draw a line there before I say another word. So tell me what life looks like for you now. You've got the kids and you're back out. So you've released your album, and you did tell me it was October last year, wasn't it? Tell the listeners a little bit about what is this the album that you've done with Robbie's work as well?
Yeah. So, it was just recently on October 25th. So I released it on our 10th wedding anniversary. And I did a concert in the church where we got married to sort of mark the album launch as well. And I sang with my band lots of the songs from the album, and a couple of little tiny songs that he had written, but some were the ideas on the folder that I found, just as they were, just as I found them. And yeah, everything was building up to that date with sort of PR and things like that. And in all the interviews, I remember saying, I'm going to be able to move forward after this date because, you know, everything is leading up to this one event and the album release, and it's going to be so therapeutic, and I'm going to be moving forward with my life. Didn't quite feel like that. It didn't quite happen in the way I'd hoped. So after the gig, I remember looking up the church, and it just felt like all my insides had just fallen out of the floor and like through my feet. I had this huge crash of like, what am I going to do now? Because I'd had this goal for so long of releasing the album on the 10th wedding anniversary, and I was really lost. So at the moment, I'm taking a step back and I'm gigging the song still, but I'm really working out what I want to do now and where I go musically with it, because it's a very intense album. It's quite dark, and it's very honest and quite gritty, I suppose. And so what do I sing about now? You know, what do I write about? Am I still allowed to write about grief, or do people expect me to be moving on? The idea of writing about new relationships feels really trivial, and Yeah, so I'm working out in terms of being an artist where I go to next.
And if people want to find you, where can they find you?
So my artist name is Sephine Llo, which is like Josephine Lloyd, but with the first two and last two.
I see what you did.
Yeah, so Sephine Llo. So I'm on like Instagram, and the album is called Diamond Fall. And
Diamond Fall.
Yeah, Diamond Fall. And it's on Spotify and Bandcamp if they want physical version. Yeah, so artistically, that's I'm all up in the air about what's next. Personally, I'm not actively pursuing dating. I think I would prefer it to happen in real life rather than all the dating apps, which are kind of soul destroying.
And it becomes all consuming as well. Like you're getting these and actually, you just want to walk into a pub, see a good looking bloke, and make eye contact. You're like, why don't we just do that?
We feel like I can't be bothered with all the small talk and the repetition and the explanations over and over again. So I would just love for something to naturally. That would be really nice. But I'm really busy with the kids. You know, they've got their nativities this week and things like that. And I've got loads of, because I work in schools, I teach music, so I've got lots of concerts there. So I'm sort of keeping busy and not taking on too much.
It's a fine balance. I walk that tightrope myself daily because you want to reclaim yourself, but you also have to make space to rest, don't you? Because otherwise you're burning out.
Yeah, properly.
Well, Josie, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for coming on and telling your story.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So as we've been talking, I just keep thinking back to that Josie and Robbie that only had such a short time together, and how much of a future that you were denied. But what I can see is how hard you have worked to create so much of that future that you promised each other.
Right.
And I imagine you're much like I am. I can feel, not in like a ghostly sense, but I can feel if Ben agrees with me on things. I've just moved my youngest daughter to school because a myriad of reasons, but she wasn't unhappy. It was a choice that I knew would protect her long term. And I kept thinking, and you just have this clarity of, that's what I should do.
Yeah.
And I don't like to go, that's what Ben would want, because
I ask Robbie, so sometimes even out loud if I'm on my own. Yeah. And I feel like I get an answer sometimes.
Sometimes we really need it.
I just know what he would say.
This is it, I think. It's not about them kind of coming to you and giving you an answer. I wish I believed in the afterlife, but that's, again, another topic. But it's about knowing them so well that you know what they would have done.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you and your children the best of luck as you navigate through the next bit. I think it gets easier from this point. I think 5 and 7 is probably about as tricky as it gets. Yeah. I think that's that sort of sticky time. And I wish you lots of luck with the album, and we will put links onto it. I did have a listen to a bit of it earlier today, and I was also trying to compile all the descriptive words of it that I saw, there was all sorts of wonderful words used to describe it, because it really is an eclectic mix of everything, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, best of luck, and thank you so much for coming on. If anybody has been affected by anything they've heard today, if you want to reach out to me or you want to reach out to Josie, you know where you can find me. But for now, I'll be back with you next time. Lots of love. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widowed AF.